Station in Nevada. Phobos 2A, the most powerful nuclear reactor and nuclear propulsion system, is successfully tested. The most powerful nuclear propulsion system ever tested, successful in 1968. So if that was successful in 1968, we can only imagine where that research is today. But NASA doesn't use nuclear propulsion systems, so who is using these technologies and where? So it could be possible that there is a secret alternative space program utilizing these technologies, and that the object we just saw is actually a test flight that the space shuttle crew knew was going on and actually videotaped it as a test to see the capabilities of this craft. That's a possibility, but we can't actually arrive there yet because we have one more problem. I'll demonstrate what that is. The space shuttle flies at an altitude of about 300 miles above the Earth. This is the space shuttle here, and this is the top of the atmosphere here. The top of the atmosphere is at about 100 miles, according to Dr. Knuth at NASA. So we can assume there's a distance between the top of the Earth's atmosphere and the space shuttle of 200 miles. Okay, so that means if the object, as we have concluded, was moving over the curvature of the Earth and disappeared in the atmosphere and went around the other side, and we didn't see the object go way up here and loop out and go around the other side, that would mean it went above the top of the atmosphere. It disappeared right in here, which means it must have went around the other side of the Earth. So we know the object is down in the 100-mile range. If the object is down in the 100-mile range, and the space shuttle is at 300 miles above it, then the distance between the object and the space shuttle must be at least 200 miles. The very fact that you can even see an object from 200 miles is incredible. Have you ever looked up at a 747 flying in the sky above you at 35,000 feet? You can see the vapor trail very clearly, but the 747 is just a tiny dot in the sky. 35,000 feet is roughly between 6 and 7 miles away. In this case, we're looking at an object 200 miles away. Again, I state it's amazing that you can even see an object that far away. So if we're looking at an object 200 away and it's even visible from 200 miles away, my estimates suggest that the object must be massive in size, far bigger than a 747. I guess approximately around a half a kilometer to a half a mile wide. If the object is a half a kilometer to a half a mile wide, it must be something beyond anything we're developing here on the Earth, because there's no way we can imagine that our space programs are developing spaceships that large that are capable of going 900,000, 800,000 miles. And another problem exists in this, the idea that this may be a human-made or a man-made spacecraft. If the object is going at nearly 1 million miles an hour and moving in this curved fashion over the Earth, as soon as you start accelerating a spacecraft or an aircraft and it starts making turns, you get g-forces. At these speeds, I don't believe any pilot could possibly survive the turns and the g-forces at 900,000 miles an hour. I think it would be impossible on the human body. Again, suggesting that this is a highly energized quantum object that's vibrating at a very high frequency, which means its mass has been converted into a very high frequency wave state, which can allow it to make these incredibly high speed turns and even radical turns like the object we saw earlier, and basically implicating the possibility of what we're looking at is actually a UFO. The next thing you're about to look at is called the Hubble Repair Mission Sequence. It shows 2 astronauts repairing the Space Hubble telescope. What's peculiar about it is there's an object going behind them. It has a kind of a light flashing to it. And it goes behind the astronauts, and we actually hear them talking about it. So listen closely to what they actually say.
Looks like you got an object right in front of you, Mark. Can you look out there? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Never mind. Are we missing something? I don't see anything. Yeah, we think the camera filter came off, Mark. It's a about your 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock going away. Don't worry about it.
So what were the astronauts actually saying? We heard, it looks like you got an object right out there in front of you, Mark. Are you looking out there? It's about your 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock going away. Don't worry about it. We know the astronaut on the left is probably the one we're talking about. That's probably Mark, because at his 11 o'clock position is where we actually see the UFO, or we see the unidentified object. It has a light flashing to it. It's definitely going behind them. So we can assume immediately that obviously these astronauts are not talking about space debris or space junk going by, because it's obviously something of significance. It captures their attention for a moment, and they're told to ignore it and to focus on the repair of the mission. So we could assume maybe they've been seeing these things frequently out there. Maybe this is an ordinary occurrence, and it's not something they should become so alarmed about. Later we hear, we think the camera filter came off, Mark. We know camera filters are screwed tightly onto cameras, and there's no way they would unscrew in space and go floating out there. So obviously, again, this is one of NASA's blatant lies, trying to tell the public during a live broadcast that what we're seeing is something that they can explain. The next scene you're about to see is called the Russian space station mirror sequence. The first part of this scene actually just shows two little, what appear to be shooting stars, and what we're told are shooting stars streaking through the hue of the Earth's atmosphere. The problem is they just keep going, and they keep going, and they keep going. They never burn up. So what's wrong with this scene? They appear to be just meteors, and I shouldn't really even be arguing the point, but I am, for one very specific reason. Meteorites, when they strike the Earth's atmosphere, they're usually very small pieces of rock, maybe this big around, some this big around, and some larger ones. But most meteorites are small enough that they burn up within a few kilometers. After they come into the Earth's atmosphere, they start to flare and burn up, and the resistance on the Earth's atmosphere and their velocity produces so much heat that they're basically gone in a matter of a split second. If you've ever seen a shooting star streaking across the sky, it literally just streaks, you see it, and then it's gone. That's because it burnt up and it's finished. So the only way a meteorite could go for the large distances that these objects go through and continue to streak on would be as if they were massive in size. In 1908 in Siberia, an event called the Tunguska event, a massive 70-meter wide meteorite, only 70 meters wide, struck the forest in northern Russia and led to an explosion that was equal to several nuclear blasts, several Hiroshimas, leveled miles and miles and miles of forest with a massive impact. So we know, again, the only way an object could travel and survive the vast distances would be as if it's a massive meteorite, a massive object. And we know from history that during the 1990s we never had a massive meteoric impact on the Earth. So what were these objects doing streaking over such vast distances if they were indeed meteorites? It's curious. I'm not going to ride that UFO with these little objects, but it's very, very curious scene. So the next part of the Russian space station mirror sequence I find really funny. This scene to me is humorous, because what is actually happening, we have the day glow of the Earth here, the Earth's atmosphere here, the Earth is down here, and we see all these white dots, which we assume are stars. And the commentary is that the astronauts are actually looking for the Russian space station Mir. Mir is a very big space station, and it's something you should be able to detect out there with your eyes and with cameras with zoom lenses on them. But the problem is, while they're looking for the Mir, there's a lot of other objects that are moving very slowly. You'll see big blobs of light that are moving really slowly in many different points across the screen. Now, if we're looking at stars, all of the stars with the movement of the space shuttle are going to be moving in a consistent line together in unison, because they're not moving points of light. But distinguishable from the stars are other blobs of light moving around, and we also see a bunch of things that we're told are shooting stars coming in at right angles to the camera, coming into the Earth's atmosphere, and we see these things going in all sorts of different directions. We actually even see one that leaving the Earth's atmosphere going out in this direction, which is something, again, impossible for a meteorite or a shooting star or even space debris to do, because anything leaving Earth's atmosphere requires internal energy, and internal energy requires and suggests intelligence. So again, what's very disturbing, what's funny about it is they can't actually find the Mir, because there's so many other things actually moving around out there.
This is Mission Control, Houston. We are using the payload.